Let's get chilly. Hello, hello. Welcome back to Let's Chill, the official, unofficial Minnesota Wind Chill and Minnesota Strike podcast. I'm Jeff,
I'm Jay.
And I'm Kane.
and the playoffs are here, guys. This is kind of what we do the podcast for. So what we look forward to all season long is the playoffs. First round starts this weekend. How are we feeling?
I'm unprecedentedly nervous. I think the loss against Salt Lake kind of got me a little like, ooh, but then we came home, dominated Detroit. So I don't really know. It's always scary to go into the playoffs, especially as a Minnesota team, just knowing kind of the history of Minnesota's in the playoffs. So we'll see.
Yeah,
I feel like. Oh, go ahead, Jay.
I'm feeling the exact same way. I think, if there's a team that Minnesota historically has done well against, at least in the last 3, 4 years, it's Madison. But just with how they've been playing this year, I don't know. This is getting me a little anxious.
I agree. I feel like probably no matter how well you do in the regular season, there's always those postseason jitters. Like, it doesn't matter if you went 12 and 0. Obviously, it helps, but like you could just flop your first round of playoffs. Um, and the Windshield did not go 12 and 0. They didn't even really get close to that. They lost three big matchups in the regular season that they needed to win. Probably at least one of them. They did win the one against Atlanta, so we'll give them that. But yeah, those three games are definitely kind of lingering in the back of our minds. But we're here. We can't. We're not a pessimistic pod. That's not our slogan. We are the official, unofficial Minnesota Windshield podcast. And with that, we are optimistic throughout. We are ride or die. Um, so we kind of have a formal segments, but we also are kind of keeping it loosey goosey. Before we get into any formal keys to the game or players to watch, do you two have anything to kind of do you want? How about we just preview maybe the Madison Radicals first round game coming up on Saturday? JRK, and I'll let you guys take it.
Ooh,
Sure.
so I mean, go for it, Jay. If you got something to say, if not, I can put something together quick.
Yeah, so this is a very interesting matchup. Madison finished their year at 7-5. Minnesota finished their year at 9-3. Um, Basically, the difference maker here is um, Minnesota took the two games against Madison. Madison won one
Yeah.
out of division game, lost one out of division game. Minnesota won one out of division game, lost one out of division game. Like their record is the exact same. Minnesota just beat Madison twice. Um, so there's that. Minnesota, beat them twice this year, but never really did we was I watching those games and thinking to myself, yeah, this game's going to be like a Minnesota stomp, even if Minnesota won by a hefty margin at the end. Madison always finds a way to make those games interesting and close, even when they're not the favorites. So I think that's going to be, exactly the case coming up this weekend. Madison fans travel really well, and it can make that home game for Minnesota almost feel like an away game. Not quite, because they're still playing at Seafoam. They're still playing in front of a mostly home crowd. But with how
Mhm.
much Madison fans travel, it almost makes it feel like not an away game for Madison, more than it does make it feel like an away game for Minnesota.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, that's well said.
so while I do think that, this week is going to be a banger, I think Minnesota will come away with it. And I think that mostly because Minnesota has beaten them twice this year and Minnesota gets to play at home.
Agreed that home game definitely helps. I think while Radicals fans travel well, we also want to point out like shout out the Minnesota fans who for the last 3 weeks now have broken the attendance record at Seafoam Stadium 3 weeks in a row. Like obviously that one week was by one. This last week was something like maybe 50 more people or so. And it really felt like to the point where if you weren't in the stadium in the first 5 minutes of the quarter, first 5 minutes of the game, like you didn't have a seat almost. Even in the end zone where we like to kind of go and sit in between every now and then, it was kind of getting tight. It was like, oh, we can't sit there. You're sitting in front of somebody. All the bleachers are full. It was crazy, and it was just like it was a good vibe, and it was a Detroit Mechanics game. Like no one really cared about the game. Obviously, look at the score, but like the fans showed up, and so hopefully it's a good game for both fans almost like again kind of like the competition in the stands almost in a way, but I think the vibes are going to be immaculate, if not a little tense. It's going to be a pretty cool crowd to be a part of. One
Yeah.
thing that oh, go ahead, Ken.
No, I was gonna say is the energy of the last game of the season against Detroit, like you said, very meaningless game if we're being honest. And I think if we bring that energy into the playoffs, if the players can ride that confidence, if we get a win against Madison, then I feel more confident going to Chicago. And obviously, I mean, if we're all kind of penciling in a win this weekend, then I know we're all looking forward to Chicago. But I think we need to focus on getting a big win this weekend, building momentum, and
Mhm.
using the energy to kind of projectile ourselves forward here.
I will say I was a little bit humbled maybe by Ben Feldman on Saturday or Sunday after the game. Not maybe not humbled, maybe that's not the right word, but I went up to him after the game and we were just chatting a little bit. I'm like, well, you guys ready for Chicago? Kind of penciling in that win against Madison, and he just like stopped me right there. He's like, we're ready for Madison. And he just kind of reminded me, like, in once it comes playoffs, yeah, you don't pencil in any games because you have like it's single elimination, it's do or die from here on out. And so it's like you will do yourself a complete disservice if you say this game's a win and you're looking at Chicago. Like, if I'm not mistaken, there is a bye week in between. There's always, I feel like, a bye week.
Yeah, there's got
Um,
yeah.
uh, no, no, well, Chicago has a bye week this week, but I think next week then they play.
No.
I thought they.
There's an off week between the Central
Yep.
Division game. Okay. So point being, the Winch will have time. They have an extra week to plan ahead is kind of what I'm trying
Mhm.
to get at. So it's like, yeah, don't give yourself this win. You focus on Madison, you put 100% effort in Madison, and then you let yourself take Chicago if you get to that point.
Mhm.
One point that I did want to bring up really quick about Madison, just kind of an interesting thing. I was going through my keys to the game. I have one key to the game I'll share later on, but part of my research for that was just looking at the playoff stats first for both teams. So the Radicals played 5 games against playoff teams this year. The Winchell played 6. The Radicals went 0-5 against teams in the playoff this year. Um, that's Chicago, Minnesota, and I think they had one out of division
Austin.
game.
Austin.
Austin, thank you. They did not beat a single team. Minnesota, on the other hand, went 3-3 against playoff teams. So better record, 500 record's not the best, but it's not bad. Um, and it's much better than 0-5 that the Radicals played. So maybe that kind of sets again the backdrop, the tone for our conversation in the next 25 minutes here. So
And not to mention, the three losses they took were against the one seeds from their respective divisions, and they beat the one seed in the South. So they lost 2 games to the one seed in the Central, the
yeah,
one seed in the West, and they beat the one seed in the South.
that's a good point.
Whereas, Madison lost to Chicago, so fair losses, but to
Yep.
Minnesota as well, and then to Austin, who was the 2 seed in the South. To be fair, Austin, very strong team, easily could have been the one seed down the most of the stretch that season.
Yeah, good point. The South Division is an interesting one. We will get to the league playoff preview. I don't know if we want to do that first, but I think we can kind of wrap up with the league-wide
Yeah.
um, playoff picture. But let's get more in depth into Madison. Let's kind of sink our teeth in this game a little bit. Like I said, I have a key to the game. I don't know if you guys want to add players to watch or keys to the game, but I'll just start off with mine. And it's not a very crazy one. It's very obvious. You got to have a quality first quarter, as we've talked about multiple times in our own group chat, on the pod, off the pod. If you don't start quarter one strong, it's game over. And all those losses against playoff teams that Minnesota experienced, that's exactly what happened. I'm gonna share my screen really quick. I've been doing this a couple times this year and last year, but I went quarter by quarter again, just looking at point differential and what the quarters look like for each team. And so on the top chart here, you'll see the Radicals have a very strong first half. This is very similar. We did a very similar preview when they played the Radicals earlier this season. And the pattern's largely the same. The numbers in parentheses are the average point scored against playoff teams, and the round numbers are total points scored per quarter. So you can see the Radicals score 20 points for half against playoff teams, and then they just completely drop off in second half, scoring only 19 points per quarter. Winchell you can see that quarter two and quarter three are by far their strongest. I mean, 28 points in each quarter two and quarter three. They do tail off at the end in Q4, and we've seen that. If you think about the Salt Lake game, especially quarter one exactly was a horrible quarter against the Shred. Um, they started off really weak. They really stepped up in the middle of the game, brought it within one, and then quarter four is when they just tailed off and they just could not finish the game against the Shred. It was a pretty winnable game, but they could not win. Um, and so this is kind of my pattern. I just want to like use this to kind of guide our conversation here. The Winchell need to address quarter one and not let them only score 3 goals if they want to have a fighting chance.
I was literally saying earlier how I was nervous about this playoff game, and it was because I could totally see Madison coming out of the gates really strong,
Mm-hmm.
catching Minnesota off guard, and then we're just off beat, a step behind for the rest of the game. And you can put together, like you said, a strong quarter two and quarter three, but if the disparity is large enough, if you don't get off to a good enough start, it can really just dismantle the entire rest of the game. And so I think that's a really good key to the game. I That wasn't what I was going to use as mine, but I was thinking about that earlier, so I like that call out,
Yeah.
and it's good to see the numbers behind it too. Yeah.
Well, and even like a small detail, but quarter four, that's not a weak quarter for the Winchell, scoring, an average of 4.1 goals, 25 goals total against playoff teams. But once your deficit, like you said, Kane, is that large, your quarter four almost has to be your strongest quarter. Again, look at the game against the Shred. If they
Hmm.
scored an average of, let's say, 5, 6 goals in quarter four, then they win that game.
Yep.
But because they tail off, they lose energy, whatever it is, and at the end of the game, that game was never going to be won.
I totally agree. And I think an interesting thing about this stat is that this is in like half losses. So
Yeah,
like those total points that like adds up to quite a bit despite there being a lot of losses. So it's not that Minnesota's not necessarily scoring less, it's that they're just giving up big leads early on. Like you score
right.
18 points, that's on average 3 points per quarter in the first quarter. And in reality, some of those are one or two because they have
Yes.
some quarters where they score 4 or 5. So some of those quarters are 1 and 2 points scored in the first quarter. It doesn't matter if you score 5, 6 in the second, third quarter. When you've dug yourself a 5 or 6 point deficit, you need to hold your opponent to zero then. And
That
that's
that was
unrealistic.
that was one thing that this chart was missing. I almost did it. I did not have time to do points against per quarter. That would have been a little too much for me to put together. Um, but I would have liked to see that because yeah, exactly, Jay. Like again, you can score 100 points, but if your opponent scored 101 points, like if we're being really dramatic, yeah, you have to more realistically first quarter is where the Winchell have gotten beat pretty much all season. And I had to exclude the games against non-playoff teams because those are Thunderbirds games, those are Detroit Mechanics games, Indianapolis Alley Cats games, and those were like it was like 12-3.
Yeah.
And like
What
how
is
can
that?
I can't
What is
include
that
that.
crap when we're holding them? We're 20-3 in the second quarter.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that
Screws the
second half
stats up
ended.
so bad. Like the averages go just gone.
I could not include that.
Also, kind of derail the conversation a little bit. We talked
Yep.
about it in our group text. After the first half, how do you take the field as Detroit?
Yeah.
Like that's got to be demoralized. I mean like I understand it. They're playing a game. They're out there. They're at that point you've conceded the game's lost. You're playing against one of the best teams in the league. It's 20-3. That's kind of a comically bad score. So you're just out there having fun with your friends. I get it from that perspective. But from a professional sports perspective, like
Agreed.
that's
And
embarrassing. That's 40-6 in the Super Bowl and they're putting their backups in kind of bad. You know what I mean? Like that is
well, and the worst part is like
go birds.
that's every game for Detroit. Like I don't want to crap on Detroit the rest of this pod, but like that's not a fluke. That's not like, oh man, they had a bad week. It was a doubleheader, whatever. That's every game for Detroit,
That's
and
I
that's
mean, that's a bit unfair. They had some pretty good games this year.
that's every game.
Against
I feel like against
Indianapolis and
Minnesota. Yeah,
Pittsburgh. Let's not pretend like they were like quality games with low turnover rates and high completion percentages and red zone conversions.
All
These
right, all right.
these were middle school teams going against each other, and one of them had to win. So
Kind of,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, yeah. And again, we're not gonna crap on Detroit, but something does need to be addressed there, and we'll let the commissioners and the higher ups figure that out. But so that's my first key to the game. I guess that's my only key to the game. I don't know if you two have any other formal ones. Feel free to jump in.
I have one, Jay,
Otherwise,
if you don't
okay.
have a formal one.
I do not have a formal one.
Okay. Um, don't turn the disc over. Like you said, Jeff, it's kind of a basic one. When I was looking, I actually came to this key to the game while looking for a player to watch.
Mhm.
Because I started looking at stats and stuff. There's a lot of high turnover players on the windshield this year. A
Mm.
lot of throwaways and a lot of drops. Um, I don't know what it is. I don't know if the defensive pressure has just been there, but I know sometimes I mean, obviously we can remember the plays where it was just a drop or it was just a throwaway. Those ones stand out a lot more obviously. But I think the individual stats, I think there are a lot more turnovers and drops. I didn't have the time to delve into like comparing, this player to the last two seasons, or I didn't want to get into the weeds.
Making a whole
And I
chart.
don't want to hold the players to all right, yeah, make a little display. And I don't want to hold the players to that. I'm not trying to like
Yeah.
call out players specifically. I understand you drop the disc, you throw the disc over. However, now that it is playoff time, I think an emphasis on completions, fundamental, very basic things, getting the disc to the next person before you look for the next throw, right? Like, or before you make your next cut, like just catching it, throwing it, because
Hmm.
if you don't do that, nothing else happens. Like, and I know that sounds dumb. I know that sounds way too like basic, but Minnesota's been turning the disc over a lot this year, and that's no secret. And if we need to stop doing that.
Yeah. I think that
Yeah,
especially goes for the game against the Union coming up. But again, we can't look ahead too
Right.
far.
coming up.
Um,
We don't know that's coming up.
right, right, and exactly. So exactly, like you
Right.
gotta be clean against
Mhm.
Madison. You have to act like it's against the Union. You really have to. Nothing is given. Not a single throw is given. Not a point is given. Not a game
Yeah.
at this point is ever for sure.
Mhm.
So I have some interesting stats about turnovers, and I did sort of want to bring this up at some point, um, because I agree. I feel like Minnesota has had some like egregious turnovers, but in reality, they just have turnovers at the exact wrong times. Um, so on average, Madison drops the disc about one, no, sorry, about as often as the Windshield do. They have turnovers about as often as the Windshield do. The Windshield had 229 turnovers this year. Madison had 232. So only three more over 12 games, an average of a quarter more per game. So that's going to be like a tight game. But again, a lot of these turnovers are coming from Minnesota when they're playing in tight situations where they can't afford to give it up or when they're, getting blown out in the first quarter of games. So like when Minnesota is clicking, they are clicking. They don't really give up the disc all that much more than a team like Madison. And even then, they only average one more turnover per game. Sorry, two more turnovers per game than Chicago did this year. So like not a horrible statistic. And mind you, Chicago played an extra game against Detroit and Minnesota played against the Shred. So if you want to take that into
Yep.
consideration,
Yep.
like I'm not saying that, Minnesota would have had zero turnovers against the Detroit compared to however many they had this weekend against the Shred and up too many. Um, but the point still stands where they're not really turning the disc over that much more than their opponents. It's just that when they do, it's more impactful. It's in times where it matters the most. And oftentimes, I felt like this year, Feldman has been taking timeouts in bad situations, putting that in the O line that immediately goes and turns the disc over.
Yeah.
Um, so I just feel like it's them not capitalizing on opportunities.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it feels like I think of a couple key moments in games against the Union specifically. I mean, again, every game had some key turnovers, but it just felt like even after the turnover is one thing, but like you got to go play defense after that. Like what happens once you turn over the disc? Like and same thing goes the other way. If the other team turns over the disc, you got to capitalize on that and score. Again, it feels obvious. It feels like duh, but you got to do it. Otherwise, like that's what wins games. As we say, defense wins games and offense wins games. What wins games is putting the disc in the end zone, whether you're on offense or defense or whatever it is. Like so, it's not turning over the discs. It's when you get the disc turned over to you, figuring out a way to move it downfield, keeping your head on you, keeping your head on straight, and playing your game, not sinking to the other level of the other team and changing how you play, changing your timeouts, all that stuff. Okay. I have one player to watch, but again, I'd rather have if each of you have a player to watch, I'll let you kind of take it first because I already said my key to the game.
Yeah, I have a player to watch. Jay, do you got one or no?
I do have one, but I'll let you go first.
Okay, perfect. Good. No one gets to steal mine. I'm gonna shout out my young goat, Noah Hansen.
Hey.
I don't think we've talked about him a lot this year. I don't think he's been a player to watch yet. He might have been one of those times where I pick Quinn Snyder and he's not on the roster or something like that.
Yeah, right.
But I'm going Noah Hansen for this game. Uh, First off, very consistent, I think, in defensive pressure, which obviously is something that Minnesota is very known for.
Mhm.
Um, he's got to know. I mean, we'll do players to watch for future games, but I think just in general, Noah's done really good. He did really well last year in the playoffs and in the postseason. He registered a few blocks, he registered a few goals, and so yeah, without getting too much into the weeds, I think Noah Hansen, very strong defensive player. Keep an eye on him against Madison, and if we get to it, future playoff games.
Yeah, I mean playoff Noah Hansen's crazy. Last year, at least in the championship game, he had 4 goals. Um, I think actually I'll pull up his stats really quick. Versus DC, he had 1 goal, 1 block. He just elevates his game, you know. In the Central Division Championship game, he also had a block. He's a player who steps up. He's had big games in college at Carleton. He's coached big games. Yeah, like he's the kind of guy you want on your squad. Like we just said, like you got to stay calm, cool, collected, keep your head on you, and not let the moment get too big. Noah Hansen's that kind of guy who can be that spark plug.
And in the playoffs in 2024, he only registered one throwaway. And so to go to my key to the
Nice.
game, again, just looking for consistency, looking for someone who will make things happen when he does get a block. So he puts pressure on and then he's consistent on the turn. So that's exactly what Minnesota needs.
Yeah,
So shout out
love
my
that.
goat.
I think a big thing about that only one turnover is that was like the windiest conditions we've ever seen. And
I was gonna
now
say, was
I'll
that
be
DC or was
I'll
that
say
Doesn't
Carolina?
matter. I mean, they're both like crazy.
um and he is a defensive player, so the number of times the disc is in his hand and he's throwing it isn't super high, but it's
Mhm.
more than once, I'll tell you that much. Um so I think that's a really good call
Considering
out.
he also registered 12 assists in the playoffs. Or sorry,
Eight
he
assists,
got
right?
no assists. I
Nine
was looking at the
assists.
regular season. I was looking at that regular season. He got 12 assists this year and 7 goals. Dude, Noah Hansen's really good at frisbee, guys.
Actually, last year in the playoffs, he had no assists,
He
weirdly
had no
enough, but he had
assists.
5. No assists.
Haha, no assists.
Uh,
If you're
Haha,
listening,
no assists.
Jay, who's your player to watch?
my play my player to watch is someone who, you know, has been consistent. I have him up all the time. Uh Gordon Larson.
Yeah.
Now, look, I wanted to say he's been having a quieter season this year because honestly, it feels like he has been having a quieter season this year. In 12 games, he's got a plus minus of 29 with 5 blocks, 15 goals, and 26 assists. 14 throwaways is bringing that down.
Jeez. Yeah.
Um, so not a quiet season. But the reason why it feels quiet is because last year in 9 games, he registered a plus minus of 38 with 4
Jeez.
blocks, 25 goals, 19 assists, and only 10 throwaways. So last year he just had an outstanding season. He had a higher plus minus in 3 fewer games. But that's not to say that he's, not been an impactful player.
Hmm.
Against Salt Lake, he registered a plus minus of +5. He threw 4 assists, he got a goal, and he hit a block. He did have one throwaway, but one throwaway a game is not a bad stat. Like multiple throwaways a game is bad. Having one, it happens. Like
Hmm.
you want to try to limit them, don't want them to happen, but one is not bad. Um, in the games against Chicago this year, he was relatively quiet. Um, But again, just even like last weekend, he started to like really come alive, sort of like looked like Gordon Larson, looked like himself, like he played last year. And I think we're kind of seeing that playoff Gordon Larson. Um, He has a plus minus of 29 this year, and in the last two games, he got 9 of that 29. So he's like really coming on fire at the right time of the season. He's looking hot as ever. And if someone is going to carry Minnesota across the finish line, get them to the Central Division Championship, and maybe even get them to championship weekend, I think it's going to be Gordon Larson.
Like, yeah, I love those Carlton boys. Um, as I said, Gordon Larson in the playoffs last year had a total of 8 assists, 3 goals, no blocks, and 4 throwaways. But that, I mean, yeah, like 8 assists right there and 3 goals. He had a goal in each game in the playoffs. Like, kind of like Noah Hansen, like turned on another level of play. And yeah, if you're getting hot at the right time, as playoffs are right, here, like he's a dangerous player. He always is a dangerous player, but yeah, you put him in a big game, and he's not gonna let it get too big.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much more to add other than I think one thing that stands out to me is his receiving yards are significantly lower this year, and his throwing yards are significantly higher.
Mm.
And I wonder if maybe they tried to position him as more of a a cutter earlier in the season, and the reason he's succeeding more later in the season now is because he's transitioning back to being a deep threat. Because last year, I mean, he registered 10 more goals and 800 more receiving yards. So
I
Yeah, I mean
will
he's
say
that player. Go ahead.
I don't think that's the case. He threw 4 assists against Salt Lake. He put up 226 throwing yards and only 81 receiving yards. Um, I do think that, he's consistently making good decisions with the disc, and that's sort of why they've been putting him in that role. We have had, like we've talked about, a lot of handlers throwing away the disc a lot this year, um,
Mhm.
and Larson has not been one of them.
There you go. Hey, we have a mini mailbag. This basically is going to tie into our players to watch, so we're not going to linger on it too much. But someone asked us, we only had one response. It was the last minute mailbag. Someone said, who should we watch during playoffs, which we did just point out, and who performed better than expected during the season? And so this is kind of my player to watch slash kind of the person who I think performed better than expected during the season is Thomas Schopp. Um, I feel like he also like we didn't like, say his name almost at all this season, but last year he played 6 games and had 1 goal. This year he's played 6 games and had 11 goals. Uh, just crazy. He played no offensive points last year. He's played 34 offensive points this year. Um, had 6 blocks in each season, and he even had 2 assists this season. So just like again, I feel like he's clicking exactly how the team needs him to click. Um, I feel like visually, I don't notice him that much on the field, but obviously he's making an impact. Like I think my focus has been drawn to so many other players. He's kind of this under the radar player who we didn't really circle, we didn't mark him as a player to watch for the year. So in my mind, he's both a player to watch for playoffs and someone who I think performed better than expected this season.
yeah, I
Yeah, I
think
think
one
that's a
thing
really
we
good point.
really. Oh, sorry, Jay, go ahead.
Also, I think that's a really good point. I think, he has been on offense has been performing very well. Against Salt Lake, he scored 4 goals and played 16 offensive points. So when you're scoring 4 times on 16, or I guess played 22 points total, but when you're scoring 4 on 16 offensive points, that's, you're scoring one every 4 times you're going out on offense. That's big.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing we really focused on last year, I think, was the youth and was the influx of the energy and the new players and what they brought. And we kind of didn't focus on that as much this year. So I really like the Thomas Shope call out because you can strategize, you can game plan, you can do all these things. Sometimes you just need to be quicker than the person next to you to get the
Hmm.
disc. And I feel like Thomas Shope is fast. He's got energy. He wants the disc more than the dude next to him, and he's gonna get it. And I think you can't measure that sometimes, and that's what we need to win a playoff game, you know?
And he gets air underneath him.
He
Like
flies.
he flies. When he skies you, like it's a poster every time.
Hmm. So I really like that call out for Thomas Shope. That's yeah. Shout
Yeah.
out Thomas if you're listening. Let's get you on the pod.
Heck yeah. Okay, we're getting down there last couple minutes here, so let's real quick shift to kind of the the league-wide playoff picture. So really quick, here's where we're standing. So the Central Division, the Union took first seed, and then the Windshield Radicals are in it, obviously. In the East Division, we got Boston Glory as number one, and the DC Breeze and New York Empire will be facing off. South Division, we have Atlanta Hustle in the first seed, and then Austin Soul and the San Diego Growlers, who people might have forgotten moved to the South Division, are facing off. And in the
People,
West
Jeff,
Division, what?
people might forget, and Jeff forgot.
Yeah, because I don't pay attention to the Growlers, but yeah, when I saw that, I was like, wait a second, did I read this wrong? No, I did, because I knew the Aviators did, but I forgot the Growlers did. I'll be honest.
Me too.
Uh,
Until like
the
halfway
we-
through the season, I was like, wait.
yeah, because then LA and PUL also joined the PUL in their South Division, so it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. West Division, we have the Salt Lake Shred taking number one, and the Oakland Spiders and Colorado Summit in that first round playoffs this weekend. So that's where we're standing. Boys, what do you think?
Personally, I kind of want to start with just my overview of like the South Division. I think because Minnesota beat Atlanta, I feel the most confident against the South Division, if that makes sense, but like
Hmm.
transitive property. We already have a win against Atlanta. They're the one seed. So I
Yeah.
feel relatively good there. Um, Although again, you can't discount any team at this point, so you can't pencil in any win. I know that. Um, Taking that loss to Salt Lake gave me a little sucker punch to the gut in my confidence because I was like, okay, we'll get the win against Salt Lake, we'll get some mojo back, and we took a 4 point loss, so that made me a little bit less confident. Um, I don't know. I think I'm not surprised at any of the teams that are going to the playoffs. I think I would be surprised if a couple of them made it to championship weekend. Um, and there's for sure a couple matchups I don't want Minnesota to have to face, but I don't know. I still got New York out of the East.
We'll do all of our championship weekend predictions at the end here. Jay, what do you think?
I think, oh man, I think this year is maybe the messiest year of Ultimate that I've ever seen in my life. I've
Yeah.
watched a lot of games from every division, except for the South, honestly, because like I watched a lot of Atlanta's games and a lot of Carolina's games, but that's about it. Um, but again, I think it's one of the messiest years of Ultimate I've seen. The fact that the Spiders are 9-3 when they easily could have been, 11-1, just like the Shred. They could have basically swapped places with the Shred um,
Hmm.
in this year. The fact that the East was basically, down to the wire. Philly could have bumped out New York or almost DC even. Like this could have been a completely different up and down. Um, Carolina narrowly missed the playoffs. For the first time in their
Hmm.
franchise history, they missed the playoffs. Honestly, every division other than the Central and the West, 4 through 6 seed, but was messy, was really messy. Um, so I don't know what to expect from the other divisions, but I know what I'm thinking to expect from the Central Division.
I
Yeah,
think
I mean,
that's where I'm at too. Yeah.
I was say I wasn't really surprised at who made the playoffs. The seeding was always a little bit iffy. I feel like usually the seeding always comes down to a couple like weird little random tiebreakers of the head-to-head or then like a point differential. I feel like it didn't really happen this year. I mean, maybe there was like a small one, but I don't think so. I think it was all like head-to-head wins and pretty clear cut, which is kind of nice. I mean, I think it did come down to the last weekend, but it wasn't like in that sense like, oh man, if they win and it's Tuesday and the wind's blowing this way, then they're in the,
Right.
second seed. It was like, nope, they won, they're in second seed. And so I think in that sense it's cleaner, Jay, but I totally understand what you mean. Like the whole league as a whole was kind of up in the air. It was really like a crapshoot, like roll the dice and see who's going to be in a way. So which is interesting, which you kind of like though too, right? It's a little bit different. It's mix it up. Okay. Well, yeah, so we got just a couple minutes left. Let's go through and give our four teams who are making it the championship weekend. I'll start. I'll kick us off. From the Central, please don't crucify me. I'm going to say the Union. Um, I will not elaborate. In the East, I want to take the Breeze, and I think I will take the Breeze. In the South, I'm going to take the Hustle. And in the West, I think I like the Shred. I think that's a little bit obvious, but I think I'm going to take the Shred.
Dang, okay, yeah, taking basically the one seed other than the Breeze. And that's it's fair. It's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
I I think out of the South, I want to take the Growlers. I honestly think the Growlers are going to beat Austin. Um,
But will they beat the hustle?
but they will not beat the Hustle, especially with the
Yeah.
Hustle on an extra week of rest. The Hustle are definitely going to take out of the South. I think the Glory have looked very beatable. Um, but I think if the Breeze win against New York, the Breeze will make it. But I think if New York wins against the Breeze, Boston's going all the way to championship weekend.
Interesting. I almost think the opposite.
I don't you
Which I know I predicted not that, but
yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't think New York is making it. I think it's either gonna be Boston or the Breeze, but I hope it's the Breeze. I hope Breeze can make it back to championship weekend.
mhm.
From the West, I'm sticking with Oakland. Like I said, this
Yeah.
they easily could have been the 11-1 team in that division. They still honestly after the game against Salt Lake that Minnesota played. I mean, there were times when Minnesota was coming back in that game when they were down by one at like two different
Yeah.
points after like going on streaks against Salt Lake and then just giving it up. I think the Spiders, if they like study the film from that game, easily exploit Salt Lake's weaknesses and beats them in the playoffs. So I think Oakland's taking it. And then from the Central, I'm taking the wind chill, and I will not elaborate.
Respect.
Um, yeah, no, those are good takes. I'm gonna start in the West. Uh, I have no clue. This is like the biggest. I have no idea. I want to say Colorado just because no one else has said Colorado, to be honest with you. Like I'm just gonna do that
Heck
because
yeah.
I could
Which,
see
by the
any
way,
one of
real
those three
quick,
teams. Any
they're
one of those
changing
three
their
teams.
name next year.
Oh, did they announce what they're changing it to, or did they just say they're
No, they're
changing it?
still voting. But
Okay, okay,
anyway,
maybe they'll change it to the Steel. Can we talk about Oregon's rebrand, please? Let's not. Anyway, I'll talk about it in my jersey rankings. So I got Colorado in the West. Out of the East, I'm going to go with New York. I do think they are an empire still. I think they are on a hot streak right now. If you guys have been, I've been watching their games the last couple weeks. They are looking really good. I think they just have momentum. Out of the South, yeah, give me Atlanta. I mean, how can you vote against them? They're probably like the best team in the league, just looking at like numbers and like the quality of their wins and stuff like that. And out of the Central, Jeff, do you know what this is the official, unofficial podcast of? The Minnesota freaking wind chill, you nerd.
yeah, yeah, no, I mean, I'll take the heat. I will take the heat. But I'm also going to be realistic on this
Yeah, that's
podcast too.
fair. That's
Like,
yeah, yeah.
I'm going to give my
12 and 0
opinions.
Union should be anyone's pick out of the Central. If any other team was 12 and 0, I'd pick them. So, yeah.
Yeah, and again, the quality of their wins against Minnesota and all that. But point aside. Okay, but the game that matters the most at this moment in time is the game on Saturday against the Madison Radicals. And again, fans, y'all need to show up loud. Bring your friend who you've been trying to get to the games all season. Bring a noisemaker. Bring a drum. Bring a cowbell. Bring a sign that says Sadicals. Uh, and let's just have some fun in the stands. Like, let's pack those stands. It's going to be a fun time. Um, I don't know what's going on. I don't know, what the food trucks they've got. I don't know what kind of giveaways they've got, but I'm sure they've got some fun stuff planned. They always do. So yeah, we can't wait to see you guys on the fence, in the stands, in the end zone. And let's get this wind chill team to Chicago and then to back to Madison for championship weekend. Let's go. Um, See you Saturday. Stay chilly and ka
Stay chilly.
Ciao. Stay
Ka-chow.
chilly.